new developments in the case of a wrongly deported man from El Salvador and new signs of defiance from the administration in that case. This includes the President of the United States saying he could facilitate that man's return, but won't, even though the Supreme Court unanimously said that he must. And the Secretary of State signaling that he won't give a federal judge the information she's seeking about the administration's efforts, if any, to get him back, even though she has given the government a strict deadline to provide it and issued new orders today. Well, that's where things stand tonight in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man who was sent to El Salvador in his notorious Secot prison, even though a court had ordered that he should not be deported to the country, let alone to a prison there. And though the deportation may have been an error, the administration's response ever since has approached outright defiance of the judicial branch. The judge in the case seems to think so, and the Supreme Court, in a 9-0 ruling, suggested the administration is not doing enough, affirming that the judge's order to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return. ABC News' Terry Moran asked the president about that during a taped interview which aired last night.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
So there he is, saying that he will not do what the judge ordered him to with the Supreme Court's concurrence, which flies in the face of prior arguments from the administration that they simply could not do it.
That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us.
Well, that said, multiple sources tell CNN that Secretary of State Rubio and El Salvador's president have been directly in touch about the case. And though one U.S. official says that the administration has asked President Bukele to return Abrego Garcia, it's not fully clear whether getting him back is even the goal of these talks at all. That's because multiple officials tell us the opposite, saying the administration is neither seeking his return nor looking to grant him any additional due process in either country. And if this is all very murky at this point, no one in the administration seems willing to clear it up, not even to the judge in this case. Here's what Secretary of State Rubio said at today's cabinet meeting when asked whether he's been talking with El Salvador about Abrego Garcia.
I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge.
That judge today denied an administration request for more time to provide such answers and set a May 5th deadline to do it, compliance that Secretary Rubio's words today cast doubt on. As for the president, he's given mixed signals on how he would approach the court, saying at times he'd obey a Supreme Court order to bring Abrego Garcia back, and then saying last night that he would not even pick up the phone to try. He's also doubling down on Abrego Garcia being a member of MS-13, even though nothing's been proven in court.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the
do that.
letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That
just...
was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice.
Well, nice or not, Abrego Garcia does have symbols tattooed on his knuckles. However, as CNN and others have reported, the photo was altered and the MS-13 added, apparently to connect the symbols to the gang. The president, though, seems to believe that Abrego Garcia literally spelled it out on his skin. And with all that, there's new reporting tonight that the administration may want to enlist 2 more countries as places to send migrants. According to multiple sources, they're Libya and Rwanda. As always, a lot of new developments on this. CNN Chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins starts us off. So is the administration, it doesn't sound like they are trying to get this guy back, even though the president acknowledged he could with picking up the phone.
Yeah, it's raised a lot of questions, Anderson, especially since that Oval Office meeting not that long ago where I was in there. I asked President Trump directly about this and President Bukele about whether or not they're going to actually facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, given that Supreme Court 9-0 ruling. And we've seen how the president's answers have shifted since then. He had a very defiant tone when I was in there with him. He essentially asked, why are you still asking about this person, as we had follow-ups about what was going to ultimately happen to him. And now we're learning behind the scenes that there's been a bit of a diplomatic effort here, it seems to be, from Secretary of State Rubio reaching out to President Bukele, inquiring about returning him potentially. Our sources say that President Bukele essentially said what he said in the Oval Office that day, that this is not going to happen. Trump himself keeps referring to the lawyers, which I think is notable. He had not been saying that previously. Now, Anderson, he keeps, when he's asked about this, often defers to what the attorneys have to say here. Pam Bondi was in the room that day as well. She is, of course, the top attorney as the Attorney General of the United States. And so it's been a very interesting back and forth here as we've seen this play out. And then you saw Secretary Rubio today saying, not only was he going to confirm this to reporters, he said he was not going to reveal it to a judge, even though a judge has been demanding to know concrete steps that the U.S. is taking to at least try to get Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the United States. And so a lot of questions, Anderson, about what this means next, if they're just trying to turn the temperature down or actually facilitate his return.
Simon Sandoval Motionberg is out front now, the attorney for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And Simon, I'm glad to talk to you again. And obviously this story is moving here even as we speak. Your reaction to what we just heard there, the president saying he could pick up the phone, acknowledging to Terry Moran he could pick up the phone, he could make the call, he could say bring him back, and that Kilmar Abrego Garcia would come back. I believe that contradicts what the Trump lawyers have been telling you in court, right? They've been saying that he couldn't just pick up the phone and bring your client back.
Yeah, I mean, the government has been talking out of both sides of their mouth pretty much since the beginning of this case. They say one thing in the press, they say another thing in court filings. This is just another example. I find President Trump entirely credible when he says that he could get Kilmar Abrego back with one phone call. Later in that same interview, he said that there were lawyers of his who were advising him not to make that phone call. We don't know who those people are, but we're going to find out.
Who those lawyers are. So you don't know who they are if he's referring specifically to individuals. I mean, it's unclear if he's, if he's referring to lawyers, general people, but he says lawyers, but you don't know who they are right now.
Right. The judge today essentially restarted the discovery process. So now we're going to be getting documents from the government. We have 9 days to take depositions of various government officials. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out, who said what to whom, when, and if anyone is telling, the cabinet officials and the president not to act in good faith here, we're going to find out who that is.
All right, Simon, literally as we were coming to air, there was another development in this case, and this is from the Department of Homeland Security. They have just shared another request for a protective order filed by the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So we knew about one petition for a protective order. They have now said that there was a second one. They're putting it out there. In it, she describes him taking her phone and slapping her during an argument. That this particular incident that this refers to is in August of 2020. She describes him breaking her phone and acting violently with police officers. Now, I just want to be clear, he wasn't charged with a crime connected with that incident or the other one that DHS has put out, and his wife rescinded the request. But what is your request to the, I guess two things, your response to the government releasing this, and were you already aware of it prior to, us talking about it here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been representing Kilmar Abrego Garcia for over a month now, and I've never had the chance to speak with him in my life, right? Because he's being held incommunicado in Salvadoran prisons. The whole country's been talking about him for over a month. We've been, the one person who hasn't had the chance to speak yet is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. If the government is so convinced that they've got him dead to rights, that they've got all this evidence against him, bring him back and put him on trial. And then he'll take the witness stand and he'll get to speak for himself and he'll get to respond to all these allegations.
Is it just so I understand though? Are you literally finding out about things like these protective orders? I mean, in the media or when DHS puts them out? I mean, are you even able to have that information prior to, say, us talking about it in this interview?
Oftentimes we find out about these allegations when they come out in the press, precisely because they're not bothering to file any of this stuff into the court case, because they know it's irrelevant, because they know that none of these things, make up for the fact that they deported him, admittedly by them, by mistake.
All right, so President Trump in this interview insists that Abrego Garcia has MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles, that literally MS-13. And he seemed to refer to this photo. So here's what he said to ABC News, to Terry Moran about it.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the
do that.
letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
All right, I'll just say, Simon, we'll put them up. On the left is the photo Trump is talking about. someone apparently added MS-13 above each symbol. That's the Photoshop that Terry Moran's referring to, claiming that that is what those symbols stand for. On the right is your client's hand when he met with Senator Van Hollen earlier this month. So that's when we got the photo from El Salvador. No MS-13. There are those symbols there. I just want to ask you a couple really basic questions that odd to ask, but has your client ever had the actual letters and numbers MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles?
No, and this is why we don't try cases, you know, in the media with drip by drip. We try cases in court with admissible evidence, right? And there's no way that Photoshop photo would ever stand up in court.
All right. Well, I appreciate your laying this out, as we know, and I will just say MS-13 experts tell PolitiFact that none of the symbols that were actually on the knuckles, they put MS-13 above them, but are known signifiers for the gang. So the things that were actually there, PolitiFact says, are not known signifiers for the gang. Just to make sure that we put out as many facts as we can in this. Simon, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.